Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
Hi everyone, welcome to a random mini-sode of Geeky Gentlemen. I'm Sid Part 2. Joining me today is...
Deadpoolzilla.
Indeed he is. Let's see here. Deadpoolzilla, how often do you watch Geeky Gentlemen right now?
I watch it a lot. It's one of my favorite shows.
Good. Then you can tell the people what they need to know.
Well, it's a show that you can go download on, what is it? Not Spotify, what's the other thing?
It's archive.org.
Archive.org, and you can check out past episodes and download them on your iPad or whatever the kids use these days.
Everyone is so terrible at this. You can download episodes of Geeky Gentlemen. There's a link in the description to download this episode so you can listen on the go on your iPad or whatever it is the kids use these days. And if you want to download old episodes of Geeky Gentlemen, there's a Geeky Gentlemen playlist. Go check that out. Leave a comment on an old episode, and it'll be uploaded for you. Bing, bang, boom. Okay. Now, what are we talking about in this weird-ass mini-sode you suggested?
Well, I suggested it after watching a ton of Batman. Yeah, that's kind of how a lot of things go these days. I wanted to bring this up because you're a very smart person, Ian, and you like to delve into characters' minds.
Or I pretend to be smart. One of the two.
You're not Steve Baxy smart, but you're pretty smart.
Aw, thanks.
So I thought this would be a fun little idea of talking about the psyche of one villain in Batman's Rogues Gallery in particular that you could either condemn or condone, that being Victor Freeze, aka Mr. Freeze.
Okay, now when we talk about this, I'm assuming we're ignoring Scott Snyder's dumbass bullshit retelling of his origin, right?
Yeah,
because
we're ignoring.
We could all agree that was complete trash.
Even he thinks it's stupid. Even Scott Snyder said, "Yeah, what the fuck was I thinking?" And I think he's gonna fix it in All-Star Batman.
There's no fixing Scott Snyder's Batman. But yeah, regardless of that. So we're gonna ignore that shit show. So Mr. Freeze is a really interesting character because for the majority of his history, he was a nothing character. He was more a superpower than a character, right?
Yeah.
And then Paul Dini gets a hold of him and does this brilliant, tragic thing. And then we seem to kind of be like in a little mundane bit where we don't really know what to do with him beyond that. It's like he's only good for that one story.
That is the unfortunate, but the other thing is that a lot of people seem to forget that Mike Mignola had a hand in recreating Mr. Freeze as well.
Mm-hmm.
The suit was all his design.
See, I don't really mind. Like, the suit is cool or whatever. I'm talking more, since we're talking about the character, I'm talking more the psychology and the history of the character that Paul Dini brought to the table.
Sorry, I just got distracted there for a bit because I'm a huge Mike Mignola fan and I just love bringing that up because no one seems to know it.
Well, there you go. Factoid of the day. But yeah, it's one of those interesting things where no one quite knows what to do with Mr. Freeze after, the Heart of Ice story. And so I actually really like what Batman the Animated Series did with him when they brought him back for New Batman Adventures. And I think I'm the only one.
Well, I think that was the Paul Dini story of Heart of Ice. It's a great episode, but at the same time, it hurt the character because, like you said, they wrote it into a corner because what can you do more than that? And New Batman Adventures, it's an interesting idea, but I don't know. I just didn't like Robo Freeze. I think they did it better in Batman Beyond, honestly.
I mean, that's cool too. I can go either way on the whole Spider Legs Robo Freeze. I was talking more, again, not talking so much about the way they presented him in a visual sense. I'm talking more about what they did with him psychologically. Because there's this scene that I absolutely adore in the episode he's reintroduced in, where he, like, comes down from the ceiling in this art gallery, and he looks at this guy's painting. It was, like, called Gotham at Twilight. And he's like, the technique is marvelous. How long did it take you to perfect? A year? 10 years? A lifetime? And the guy, like, gets in front of his gun, and he's like, please don't. I'm too old. I can never paint another. And he's just, like, so cold and emotionless. He goes, pity. And just fucking blasts the shit out of the thing with his freeze gun. And it's, like, so fucking ballsy, epic, cold as ice thing. And that's perfect in my mind. Of this guy who lost everything, gave up anything, any scrap of anything he had left, in pursuit of trying to get back everything, and then lost all of it again, so now he has no choice but to be a villain. That's the only role he can conceive of himself as. And so, he's just like, fuck it. If I can't, like, it's this ultimate nihilism thing, where he's just like, I don't give a fuck about anyone, anything in the world anymore, and I'm just gonna take it all with me. No one will ever get to be happy again. And I love that. That idea of being so completely removed and just deep down in depression that the only way you can think to lash out at the world is to just remove happiness from others.
It's the literal, if I'm not happy, no one's happy. It's the ultimate form of that.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing with Freeze, especially from moving on with Nora, and I do want to talk a bit about his time with Nora and how that affected him psychologically.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing is, like you said, it's the ultimate nihilism, really. But in a weird way, it's kind of interesting because you almost get a sense that he's happy that, Nora is no longer attached to him. Because now I feel like, now he feels like he can literally be this monster that he has. Because he's literally, both psychologically and physically, lost his humanity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's just something I find really interesting is, what's that saying? The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
And he's the ultimate, he's almost like the ultimate representation of that.
Yeah, and so that's what I really love about the idea behind the character, and just no one seemed to... I will admit, New Batman Adventures, making him just a head with spider legs, bad decision. The character side of that, though, was so fucking brilliant, and I love it to death. In that art gallery scene I was talking about, a lady's dog starts yipping at him, and he just, slowly aims the gun at the dog. There's, it's so weird in film, the things we do, but, we will more readily forgive a child murderer than someone who murders an animal, right?
Yeah.
and so he's, so ready to just fucking do that. And that's, it's not even, on a thing he's struggling with. It's just on a whim he's ready to kill this fucking dog for yipping. I just really love that approach to the character and that psychology, and it's something I've not found anywhere else. It seems like we always go back to, I just want to save my wife. And that's the same story over and over again. Give him a pathos like you would any other Batman villain. Him wanting to save his wife is his origin. Go on from there.
Well, I think that's kind of the thing, is that, this is what I think has made Batman's villains so memorable, is because sometimes they're made as monsters by their own whim or their own reasons. And I feel like Freeze is a good form of that, where this is a man who you could look at and say, you can look at what Freeze does for Nora and ask yourself, I'm going to ask you, Ian, how far would you go to save Haley's life?
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of those things, like, at what point do you just have to accept death? I love that idea. And we talk about this all the time with Batman. The shorthand for making a great Batman villain is take an aspect of Batman and skew it in a funhouse mirror, and then you'll have your villain. So Mr. Freeze, how does he relate to Batman? Batman is obsessed with the death of his parents, and has been shown in stories in the past to have done things to prevent it, even though he knew the consequences. Sidebar, but, like, I remember I left this comment on a YouTube video at one point, and I was talking about how in a Batman-Superman comic, they travel back in time to the night when Batman's parents die, and even though Batman knows the stakes of not being able to change history, like, without disastrous consequences, he can't help himself and does it anyway, beats up the mugger, and it, like, fucks up the space-time continuum and just, like, plunges the world into goddamn chaos after the fact, and he's erased.
Oh, so they did. So they did Flashpoint before Flashpoint. Wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, it really fucks with shit, but he does it because he's so obsessed with that moment, with that thing, with that connection to his parents, and he cannot in any real way accept their deaths. And, this is where we get to Grant Morrison and why he's a genius, but whatever. And so Freeze has that same connection. It's a very human thing. He does not want to accept the death of a loved one, and he's willing to do anything to either prevent it or he's willing to take on the world in spite of that death. In spite of the reality of death, he's willing to take on the world for it, right? And so that's what makes Freeze really interesting in that perspective. And so I feel like once you take that away from him, once Nora is gone for good, whether she's recovered and leaves him or she does in fact die, whichever way it goes, I think that's like a really great place for the character to be. And how he parallels Batman.
Yeah. Batman Sub-Zero is not the best Batman animated film, but I do love that ending where Nora is cured, she's fine, and you look, and Freeze is standing outside, in the middle of the Arctic because he can never be with her now. And he just smiles and he just wanders off into the icy wilderness, and it's this bittersweet ending. Yep. I don't know if you ever played Arkham Knight, his story arc.
No, I didn't.
Do you want to know how it goes?
Sure, because I don't think I'll ever end up getting a PS4.
Okay, so it's a side mission, and Freeze is like borderline, like he's close to a cure now. He is like so close to a cure, but these militia, this like Black Ops militia, take Nora, and they're holding her for ransom, and Batman offers to go get her back. Turns out they defrosted Nora.
Oh, shit.
And she's alive, she's awake, and Freeze is like, no, I can freeze you again. And she's like, no, I don't want this. And at the end of it all, Freeze has to make a choice to save Batman or save the cure. And he ends up blowing up his research to save Batman. And at the end, it ends with Freeze just talking to Nora, and she's like, I'm not going to let you keep destroying yourself just to save me. And he's like, you don't understand. You have only like days. And she's like, time was never on our side.
Yeah, see, it creates this really interesting parallel to things like, how to put this, coma patients, right? Where we always talk about the idea of, and you'll hear people talk about this whenever they hear about this thing of someone being kept alive on machines and feeding tubes and all that. And they might not be aware of their circumstance as they're on the machines, but we as people often see other humans in that position and go, if I am ever like that, just kill me. And so Nora, in this interesting way, is the person on the tube, and Freeze is the family member who just cannot accept the reality of her death and just doesn't want to let her go, and is sure he can find some way to save her, which he, good writing says he never will. He may get close, but he never will, right? He's always just trying to find a way to save her, and she just wants him to let her go, because the fact of the matter is, he's destroying, like, not only is she dying, but he's dying too in trying to keep her alive.
Yeah. It was interesting in that story that, in Arkham Knight, where, she did know, she was, like, somewhat aware of what Victor was doing. She said it wasn't like, I knew exactly everything he did, but she could hear him talking to her sometimes, because, again, I'd imagine cryosleep, you'd have some awareness.
Who fucking knows? It's whatever the writer wants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that is the thing, is that, we always say, you always have these conversations with family members or other loved ones, and they always say, if that ever happens to me, just let me die. But when you're in that situation, you can't really ask yourself, should I just do this, or should I try something?
Yeah, it's a incredibly interesting juxtaposition, because no family member ever wants to sit on the other end of that, right? And it's just terribly tragic and very very touching. It gets right at your heartstrings, and it's incredibly interesting stuff. I want to talk about one other thing, because I feel we've reached a good place on what motivates Freeze and what makes him interesting. And that is to talk about one of the greatest disappointments in casting history, which is Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze. And call me crazy if you want, but I will stand by this statement. Arnold Schwarzenegger could have been the greatest Mr. Freeze ever if he had a good script.
There are points, like, towards the end where he's like, she lives, and he's just bawling. There's like, oh, you could have been good. Like, there's a small chance he could have been good without the ice puns and all
certainly.
that.
Like, the ice puns and everything ruin it. But, like, you look at Terminator 2 and how he's just this seemingly cold, emotionless machine, but then has these moments where he's very detached, but incredibly human, and it's so perfect. And I'm like, that's how you write Mr. Freeze! Arnold could have done it! I swear! Because, like, acting without emotion is incredibly difficult. Because, like, that's always the jab people throw at bad actors is, oh, they have no emotion. No, they have emotion, they're just bad at portraying it. Whereas acting with no emotion is incredibly difficult, because it just can come off as so silly and flat and doesn't work. So it's this incredibly difficult line that you have to balance on, and Schwarzenegger could pull it off. A lot of people can't. And I really think that acting as someone who is trying to suppress their emotions because they've become so detached and so obsessed with this one thing would have been the perfect way to have Mr. Freeze written, and I really, really do believe Arnold could have done it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you could have saved Batman and Robin from being a bad movie had it not been for, because I like Batman Forever. I'm gonna go out and say it. I like Batman Forever is my favorite of the Schumacher Burton era films.
Okay.
Yeah, you can quote me on that, because I think Schumacher, he's really good at that kind of deep in psychology stuff. You go look at some of his other films, and again, I feel like before WB fucked over BVS, they fucked over Schumacher and his vision for this film.
Yep.
Because it was all based off of toys.
Yeah, it's just a whole list of messes, but regardless of all that. So yeah, I really think that Schwarzenegger could have pulled it off. and I just wanted to get that out there, because I've talked about it here and there on Geeky Gentleman in the past, but since we're doing a whole episode on Mr. Freeze. Okay, 2 more things. The Batman's Mr. Freeze, cool design, terrible character.
Yeah, and the Batman, I love you and I have talked about how we love that series.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I did not dig Mr. Freeze at all.
Because he's not a character. It's like, oh, well, we don't want to be too much like the animated series, which is kind of just saying, we don't want to be good. And with their approach to Freeze. I don't mind the whole ice helmet. It doesn't make any sense, but it's fucking cool.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of cool villains they did cool takes on. Penguin, I liked their Joker.
I don't like their Penguin. But yeah, regardless of that, I don't like their Mr. Freeze. I do think he's got a cool costume, which brings me into this other point. Favorite Mr. Freeze costume?
Oh, I would have to say the one from Arkham City. It just looks so large and imposing, but at the same time, it does look like a life support system.
Okay, so like kind of like that low-grade Darth Vader or something, right?
Yeah, but it's it also has like when he's ever like going in to fight Batman, the goggles turn red like an animated series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a very cool form. It's like I said, big, imposing, but yeah, it's very much like Darth Vader's suit.
Yeah,
when you think about it.
Darth Vader, Diet Darth Vader.
What about you? What's your favorite suit?
You know, this is gonna sound crazy, but I really don't like the suits a ton, but I really do love the design in Batman the Animated Series, especially with the black face.
That's not the best word to use.
But it is a black face. It's such a weird subversion that doesn't make any sense, but it's such an interesting artistic choice. And Mr. Freeze is one of the few people who makes sense to come back in Batman Beyond. Because he's in cryogenic stasis, basically. I don't know.
And he's not really human anymore, so that kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I really like that about it.
Yeah. I just don't think you should have used the term black face for that kind of terminology.
But he has a black face. His head is white, but when he puts on the helmet, his face turns black. It doesn't make sense in any logical way, but it looks cool.
There you go. There's the better terminology.
Oh. Yeah. It's this weird blend because it's so 50s sci-fi, right? With the big dome on his head and all this other shit.
So, you know what it looks like to me? Like the Beyond costume? It looks very much like Robbie the Robot from Forbidden Planet or some... And I don't mean that as a bad way. I think it's kind of cool. It's so 50s retro.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And of course you can't top... Of course the Mignola suit is just... of course you can't beat that classic, even though, yeah, it looks kind of goofy, but at the same time, it has this kind of signature look, and it is, again, the whole 50s retro kind of thing, which Mignola was very popular for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the bands around the shoulders and arms, right? The hoops or rings or whatever you want to call them. That's the part that makes it all 50s.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Mr. Freeze is a hard character to cosplay. Just getting that damn helmet.
I wonder what. Yeah, or it's the helmet. It's all the little pieces you have to put, and the cold gun, which I don't know how you would put that together.
Yeah, I'm just looking through Mr. Freeze cosplays now, and some of them are alright, but there is an undeniable, really easy to make goofiness here. Oh well, what can you do? Alright, are you all done talking about Mr. Freeze? Did you have anything else you wanted to bring up?
Nope, not that I could think of.
Yeah, we're all frosty and good and stuff. Okay. This is gonna be a shorter episode then, because I'm running out of stuff to talk about too. I guess my final thought is just write him like he was in Batman New Adventures of Batman. I just really like that approach. And I think there's interesting things you can do with it. That is all. Alright. Everyone, thanks very much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
I am the Don Juan of Comic-Con.
I forgot about that. And we are your geeky gentlemen, and we will be discussing things. Oh, good job, good job.